Everybody, good evening. Thank you for joining us. Can I ask you all to turn your cameras on so we can see who you are and be able to interact with you? It's okay if you don't want to, of course. So thank you all for joining us to celebrate the life of Ramon Casha on what is the 5th anniversary from his passing. As humanists, we don't believe Ramon is listening. So we feel that getting together to remember his life and all he stood for is the best way for us to honor his memory. I'm going to start by reading an anonymous poem that I had read out at his funeral ceremony, in the hope that it will capture the spirit of what we are here for today. It reads, "Ask not how did he die, but how did he live? Not what did he gain, but what did he give? These are the units to measure the worth of a man as a man, regardless of his birth. Nor what was his church, nor what was his creed, but had he befriended those really in need? Was he ever ready, with words of good cheer, to bring back a smile or to banish a tear? Not what did the sketch in the newspaper say, but how many were sorry when he passed away?" To start this memorial event, I would like to invite Mr. Gottfried Vella to say a few words about Ramon, after which I would like to invite all of you to come forward with your own reflections on Ramon and what memories of him you cherish. Please message us or raise your hand should you wish to speak after Gottfried. Gottfried is a humanist, a musician, an information technologist, in that order. About 13 years ago, he came up with the idea of setting up a humanist association in Malta, and mainly along with Ramon and Rafael Vassallo, got it going together in early 2010. He currently lives in Gozo and spends an amount of his time trying to help protect the island from the ravages of short-sighted developers with local environmental NGOs. Over to you, Gottfried.
Thank you, Gail. Can you hear me, by the way?
We certainly can.
Okay, good. Well, I'm not sure that I can really follow up on that lovely poem that Gail read. It really says it all, but Christian asked me to say a few words, and I'll start off with my first memories of Ramon. I got to know Ramon exactly, as a matter of fact, 13 years ago. I looked at my old emails, and the first email exchange we had was on the first week of February of 2010. Basically, as I think Gail has just mentioned, me and Rafael Vassallo had kind of got together and decided that we wanted to form a humanist association in Malta. And we were looking around for a core team of people, and we kind of came up with James De Bono, I recall, in the early days, and Philip Manduka and Alex Dimitrievich. But I mentioned to Rafael that I had seen this guy who I didn't know, who wrote these great articles and came up with comments in the Times to every single reactionary article or reactionary statement that there was in the Times of Malta or the Independent. And basically this was Ramon. So I suggested we get in touch. I basically got hold of his email. And the next thing that happened, that me, Rafael and Ramon met at my house, and the MHA happened next. Now, 7 years later, I remember, I recall the exact moment. I was in Brussels and I got a phone call from Roger Terrazona, who told me that Ramon had passed away. It was exactly 7 years later, actually. And I knew that Ramon had not been well since his accident 6 months earlier, and he had lost weight, didn't have any appetite. And I had spoken to him some days earlier, I recall, and he said he was going to do some tests and hopefully get to the bottom of what was wrong with him. But fate decreed otherwise, and we lost, an individual who has contributed more towards humanism and secular causes in Malta than any other person that I can think of. Now, in humanism, Yeah, I think as Gail kind of alluded to, we do not canonize anybody and we do not beatify anybody, but we do cherish the memories and example of those who stuck their neck out and worked to bring about a saner and more compassionate and rational society. And Ramon was certainly stood head and shoulders above anybody else in this context. And it's just amazing how much time he made available to for the cause of humanism and civil rights. I notice that there is a picture brought up of a committee meeting when Rafael was still chairing. The empty chair is me, by the way. I'm taking the picture, and there's Roger and Ramon was secretary at that point in time, if I recall right. And he was always a member of the MHA committee and eventually chair. And in fact, he was chair when he passed away. And it's you know, going through all he wrote about, all he did. I mean, he was in the first group of humanist celebrants. In fact, he was very key in organizing the first training that we did with the British Humanist Association. And he was also instrumental in building in organizing, rather I should say, the 2016 annual European Humanist Federation meeting in Malta, with representatives from just about every European country. And in the process and along the years, he had gotten a lot of respect from our humanist colleagues in Europe. And he always argued and promoted incessantly, I think, the causes that humanists and secularists were fighting for, particularly through the articles he wrote and the comments in the media, both the formal media, the newspapers, and in particular our Facebook group. And I will just go through some of the things we worked on and that Ramon had a major hand in. The divorce campaign was one of the first. In fact, I think that was in 2010, 2011. We had argued, well, not argued so much, but we had persuaded the education department that the introduction of ethics would be a good idea. And we did a lot of work for the education department in terms of coming up with what other countries had done. He was a great fighter for women's reproductive right, and I recall the big debate on the morning after pill or the emergency contraceptive pill, LGBT rights and same-sex marriage. The list goes on. Assisted dying. He wrote some great articles on assisted dying, and yeah, I recall one article where he mentioned, well, he wrote about one of his and mine actually favorite authors, Terry Pratchett. He had all his books. Terry Pratchett had Alzheimer's and was campaigning for assisted dying legislation in the UK. He died of Alzheimer's, and assisted dying legislation did not come about in the UK. But again, it was one cause that was very close to his heart, and as humanists, we're fully behind the ideas that Ramon was coming up with over there. The repeal of the blasphemy law, which happened, he spoke a lot about constitutional reform, not just Article 2, the infamous Catholic religion is the religion of the state or of the country, whatever it is. Again, that is still something that we have to keep on arguing and fighting for. Migrants' rights, and I know that will be touched upon later on today. In fact, there was never, I think, a cause that as humans would believe in that Ramon, in his lucid and incisive manner, would not tackle. And in fact, there was somebody, I can't remember who it was, who came up with the number of comments that individuals had written in the Times of Malta. I can't recall over the period, but I know it was in 2014, and it probably was over a year. And Ramon actually came third, but he had written about 4,500 comments. apart from all the comments that he wrote on Facebook and all the posts that he did on Facebook. He basically dedicated all his time to the MHA, all his free time to the MHA. And there wasn't a speech that he was invited to give that he was not ready to give, or a civil rights meeting or march or whatever that he would not partake in if he was asked. Now, I don't know how many of you know, but Ramon's career was actually in information technology, mainly in programming. And I don't know how many of you know this, but he actually wrote the first Maltese spell checker back in 2002. And it was a pretty good spell checker, even though there was not the advantage of AI that we have nowadays. But basically, this was his work, and the rest of his life, certainly after 2010 and the MHA came about, was dedicated to humanism. I actually, if you do a search on Times of Malta for Ramon Casha, you will find a number of articles. Some of them I couldn't even remember that he had written. But his articles go back to 2003, so way before the MHA came into existence. And this is why I had noticed him actually in the first place. Now, I should say a quick word about the MHA as it was in the early days. We had a very active MHA Facebook group, and there would be hundreds of posts every week, and it was not uncommon for a post to attract maybe even 600 comments, and this was not like a one-off. And Ramon was very key in instigating all this. He was a great contributor to posts instigating debate, and also he was always there with a comment. And actually, this brings me to the one thing that me and Ramon maybe did not see totally eye to eye on. Ramon had a take no prisoners approach to debating. Even I found it a bit of a contrast to his very gentle, unassuming, and considerate character. But basically, I felt that he looked at a bad argument as he would be looking at a software program with bugs in it. If you had a software program with errors in it, the only thing to do was to correct it, and there were no half measures. And with Ramon, there was no compromise on issues relating to civil rights and to the things we believed in. I would argue myself that not everybody was on the same point in the path from superstitious belief to adopting a more rational life stance. And I felt that maybe we should be more patient with those struggling to share the logical and superstitious belief. And basically, this was the only thing that we didn't see 100% eye to eye on. But then the same arguments or the same comments get levied at Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens and Sam Harris. And I believe it is the mark of somebody who's truly passionate about what he believes in and does not allow much room for ambiguity, and somebody who cannot understand why others do not see things in the same rational and logical way that he does. I won't say much more, but I think just to close off, if we want to really honor the memory of Ramon, we should, and further the cause of humanism, then there are some things that I believe we should do. And the first thing is I think we should really endeavor to create the sort of environment that we used to have on our Facebook page when there was so much discussion going on, and people were pulled in and minds exposed to ideas. At the moment, it is pretty quiet, and I think this is something that we should be doing. We should, I think, increase the number of members that the page has, and basically that subscribe to humanism. It's been 2,000 now for the last 5 or 6 years. And we should continue working on those issues that we believe in and that Ramon used to work so hard on. One other thing that was close to Ramon's heart was that we should find a place where we can have humanists funerals in the dignified manner that they should be held at the moment. Not at the moment, but we have struggled for many years to find a suitable location, but so far it's blank. And this is something that I think we really should put a lot of more effort into. And one last thing, I believe we should try and tempt somebody to write a history of humanism and secularism in Malta up to this point, but also with a focus maybe and built around the many writings and that Ramon has left us. And there are many, ranging from just about every single subject that I mentioned earlier. Ramon will never fade away from our collective memories. So let us keep up the good work that he dedicated the final, and not just the final years, but many years of his life to. Thank you.
Thank you, Godfrey. Did I hear you volunteer to write the history of humanism?
No, I wouldn't be very good at that actually, but you know, maybe we could find somebody with a more literary.
It's a very valid idea, actually.
And I think if you, I would suggest if you have like an hour to spare, anybody, you know, just go into the search bar of Times of Malta and just type Ramon Casha, and the articles that come up are, like I said, I had forgotten, you know, about the existence of a number of them, but I believe that we could even do something built around the articles that Ramon wrote, and some of the more incisive and weighty posts that he put into our Facebook group. It's worthwhile, I think.
Yes, I tend to agree. Would anybody else like to contribute their own thoughts? Okay. All right. As you may know, upon Ramon's passing, the MHA, together with Ramon's family, got together to establish a fund in Ramon's honor. MHA chairperson, Dr. Christian Colombo, shall be updating on the fund and its operations to date. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Gail. So I think we have a lot of legacy to continue building upon. So I think it is our duty to continue. And one of the things that Ramon really believed in is the education, especially of women, and especially of disadvantaged women. So this is why, together with his family, we decided to set up this fund. And last year, we launched the scholarship scheme. This is, what I'm showing here is a screenshot from the website. We're happy to say that we have had 3 students who benefited from this scholarship scheme. And these are like a few snippets of what they told us. So we're happy that we are making a difference in the lives of these students, be it they learning English or mathematics or whatever they ask for. And I believe that this is something concrete, and we have helped people in a very practical way in this manner. Just to give you an update, so far we have collected 2,160, out of which 1,400 is either spent or already committed to successful applicants. And in fact, the scholarship scheme is still open, and we have 760 remaining funds. And then we hope to continue building on this. Thank you, Gail.
Thank you, Chris. Prior to closing this memorial and proceeding with the annual general meeting of the MHA, I'm going to read Carl Sagan's Pale Blue Dot, which was a favorite of Ramon's to use in the funerals he conducted. So thank you all for joining us, and may you have a great evening. It reads, look again at that dot. That's here, that's home, that's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, and every human being who ever was lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. The Earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The Earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit, yes. Settle, not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. Here's to Ramon's memory. Thank you.